All right. Now we're hitting on all cylinders. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Phillip Cantrell here. Today is December the 19th, 2025. We are really glad you're here. We've got, three figures of people on the call. We're approaching nearly 100 viewers. We're doing this live. I'm in my office. David Lee's in his office. Scott Brolin's in his office, and we're going to be hitting you live now. Since we are doing this live, we have the ability to answer questions, and at the end, we will do a Q&A. So be sure and enter your questions or comments in Q&A, and we'll address those as we go through. Our marketing guru, Katie Wiley, is on the call as well, and she can monitor those, and anybody gets smart, she can cut you off. How about that? So hopefully that makes sense. Can y'all hear me okay? If you can hear me okay, give me a thumbs up or a heart or something. Okay. All right. Good. Um, so we have David Lee. Say hello, David Lee.
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning. David Lee is our Director of Compliance here at Benchmark Realty. We also have Scott Rowland. Say hello, Scott.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the last.
All right. Well, we're glad you're here. You're lagging a little bit there, Scott. So if you might want to double check on that to make sure that you've got the credentials signed in okay. But we're just remember, guys, they can't see your picture unless you talk. So when you talk, they will see you. Well, all right, let's get started now. We have lots of good stuff going on. I'm going to start with a little advertising here and remind you that while this is live, it's also being recorded for our YouTube channel. And we have all of the Fridays of Phillips on our YouTube channel. All of them are archived there. And if you are a benchmarkian, you also have them on the Benchmark Dash. Now, we're going to have a pretty extensive slide deck with this one today. And we will have that slide deck on Benchmark Dash. It will not be on the YouTube channel, but it will be on Benchmark Dash for you benchmarkians that want to refer back. So you can take notes if you want to, and that's awesome. I encourage you to do that. But if you don't want to, then it will be, this slide deck will be on Benchmark Dash later on today. So we're glad you're here. When you go to our channel, you can see there at the bottom all of our archived videos, and we now have a lot of them. We got my laser pointer on. You want to be sure to subscribe, hit like, make sure that way you're notified about any new videos that come out. And we also index the videos as well. Big shout out to Andy for helping us figure that out. But we've got the index here, so you don't have to go through the advertising. You can skip straight to the part that you want to know about. Click the button, it takes you to that section of the video, and all of them are now indexed that way. Another shout out to Momentum Title. Now, Momentum Title has got 6 attorneys on staff. We have attorneys there that have argued and won cases before the U.S. Supreme Court. So they are sitting at the closing table with you. That was one of my hot buttons. Is that there's nothing wrong nothing against notaries. I love notaries, but if I'm doing a closing and I've got a problem that comes up, I want an attorney sitting at the closing table, and that's the promise with Momentum Title. And remember that they usually have a processor or an attorney in every one of the Benchmark offices. Just as a note, there's no closing fee on your first closing. There's never a closing fee on active military or your personal residence. And you can get started with zero cost that way by doing business with them. So send them an order. It's 50% off for veterans and first responders, always 50% off for your personal investment properties as well. So we honor those service with savings. And there's only one closing fee. So if they can get both sides of the transaction, then that closing fee will be split between the two parties. So there's benefit to using them. Orders at MomentumTitleTN.com. And also a reminder that the revenue from Momentum Title helps pay for the free tools. And one of the biggest free tools that we have right here is RealScout. RealScout think of it as a Zillow search or a RealTrack search with machine learning or AI involved. They have really ramped it up, really amped it up. We have had benchmark exclusives on there for 2 years now. So that conversation is kind of old news for us here at Benchmark. But the RealScout platform is provided free to you. And if you don't have every one of your Benchmark clients on there, then you are losing out right now. They've just rolled out a new feature that I want to play this little video next for you about how AI now comes into your search features. So watch this.
Every realtor needs this tool.
Introducing AI Search, the most advanced home search built for real estate pros.
My clients want a 3-bedroom home in San Diego, under $2 million in a gated community, but it has to have under $500 of HOA fees.
Just describe it, and RealScout's AI gets to work.
Show me 3-bedroom fixer-uppers under $1 million in Sherman Oaks with either a pool or ADU.
Fine-tune your results with criteria as detailed as your client's wish list.
2 bedrooms will work, but it's got to be at least 1,700 square feet. Okay, I see you, RealScout.
Create a listing alert from any search or turn it into a search link to attract new leads.
If you're looking for a house with a pool, this is the link for you. Go ahead and click this.
Maximize the results from your MLS.
Agents don't have the capability to do this right now. It's not even just about saving time, it's accomplishing something that we don't have access to.
Try AI Search in RealScout today.
That seriously might have just saved me 40 minutes.
No kidding. Important point here. Set up your prospects on searches using AI. Set up a search in RealScout. Use it for social media. Use it for prospecting. This is free to you as a benchmark agent, and only because we have been a long-term subscriber do we have access to this. Other people using RealScout do not have access to this. So you want to utilize that competitive advantage, and remember that the revenue from Momentum Title helps provide this for you. So utilize both, and it's a double winning combination. And here's another tool that we have for you here at Benchmark, Hutsenpillar Insurance. We've set up a joint venture with them, and the QR code you can see there on the screen. I'm sure you've already received communications. So why did Scott and I do this? It's because we kept seeing deals fall apart. Did you know that you cannot get homeowners insurance on a house if the roof is more than 2 years old now? And a lot of folks don't realize that until they're a week before closing, and suddenly the deal blows up because they can't get insurance. Take the QR code, run a prospective report on the property, and don't be surprised at closing. And speaking of videos, now we got another video here.
Hi, everybody. Here at Benchmark, as you know, we're always looking for ways to bring you more value so that you can increase your value proposition for a greater client experience. One of the trends we've noticed this year were the amount of transactions that we're having a hard time getting to the closing table due to insurance. We realized we need to find a source for you guys. A source that can help you become more educated, answer your questions, so you can be the main source for your transaction and have better control. After speaking to many benchmark agents who happen to refer their business in one direction, I went and talked to a guy, CJ Hutsenpillar, owner of Hutsenpillar Insurance. We are proud to announce our new partnership with Hutsenpillar Insurance. I want to introduce you to CJ Hutsenpillar.
Hey guys, I'm CJ. So great to partner with you guys. My team and I are based here in Mount Juliet, Tennessee. I have a team of 18 licensed and local insurance agents, and we are so excited to be able to be a resource for all the agents of Benchmark. So if you have any questions regarding insurance on any property, whether it be, a home somebody's purchasing, a commercial property, anything like that, my team is here to guide and assist you with not only quotes, but also questions and answers to common problems. And we're also going to put out some education for you guys on things to look for to help make sure that your deals are getting to the closing table and insurance isn't causing you any problems whatsoever. As part of our partnership with Benchmark, each of you is going to receive a customized landing page that you can send to your clients, friends, and family that makes them getting insurance quotes just a few clicks of the mouse away. We are super excited about this partnership with Benchmark, and I look forward to meeting each and every one of you real soon.
There you go. Thank you, CJ and Scott. You guys have already received those emails by now, those customized links to the custom landing pages. So you want to be sure and check your spam folder. And hopefully you haven't unsubscribed. So we want to do business, good business for the consumer. And I want to make an important point before we go any further. Everything we do here at Benchmark is focused on the affiliate, agent, and the consumer. We don't care about anything else. So whatever it takes to remove as much friction in the transaction as possible, that's what we're going to do. So that is our primary focus. There is zero self-interest here. Do we make money on it? Yeah. We then turn around and push that into another tool for you benchmarkians to utilize for free. That's a pretty big deal. Scott, do you want to share anything on insurance while we're kind of on this pause right here?
Reiterate what you said. There were so many transactions falling apart. We, as Real estate agents, we've usually given this control over to the mortgage lender. And 3 or 4 days before closing, hey, buyer, don't forget to get your homeowner's insurance. And that's where the surprises hit. We've seen trends of percentage deductibles, the roof ages, like you mentioned. We've seen insurance companies requiring to see a home inspection prior to issuing the policy, which would be a 7-day turnaround. So this just gives you more control in your transactions so that you can set everything up on the beginning instead of surprises at the end.
Excellent. So everybody in the room who likes surprises, raise your hand. Except for Christmas, you don't like surprises, right? You like to know that the deal is going to close, that your client is taken care of, that the friction in the transaction has been removed, and that's why we do this. So thank you, Scott. All right, moving on. We have not done company numbers in quite a while now because we've been focused on the new forms that we are releasing, I should say. We're going to go through those in just a second. But I want to just briefly cover year to date. Now, year to date numbers are for November. Even though we are doing this December 19th, we don't have December. December's not done yet, so we don't have those numbers to release. So we're going to talk about briefly, just real briefly, how we've done year to date as of the end of November. So let's look at it. Now, in the past, if you'll recall, if you've seen this before, I always do that month the year before and then that month this year. And here we are. The 5 basic metrics we track are gross sales, gross commission, benchmarks transactions, comparing that to the greater Nashville MSA market transactions, and then benchmarks average sales price. You can see there for November 24, where we were at. 318 million for the November 24, and then 7.6 in commissions paid on 668 transactions. That was 2024. 2025, how did we do? Well, here we are. We blew it out. Congratulations to the Benchmarkians. You absolutely blew it up in November. A 22.4% increase year over year on gross sales, a 20.7% gross commission, and your transaction count was up 9.3% on average sales price of $522,000. Now, the one that we really like to hone in on is this metric right here. How did you do compared to the local market? Okay, so the local market being the greater Nashville MSA, because that's where the majority of our affiliates are. You were roughly 19, what is that? So it's over 20% ahead of the market. What's that? 12.9 plus 9 is 23.2, right? Okay, 23% ahead of the local market. If that's not bragging rights, I don't know what is. And if you're not using this in your listing presentations to show how effectively our tools work to help sell properties, then you're losing out. You should use that. You should use that. Moving on to inventory, what did our inventory look like? As you can see, it continues to be greater than it was the year before. November 25, we had 2,111 units on the market. November 24, we only had 1,669 on the market. That's a year-over-year increase of 26.5%. While that is a big number, that's actually down month over month. So the accumulation of inventory is beginning to ease somewhat because people during the holidays, during the November, December timeframe, traditionally, if they have a listing, they'll want to pull it off the market and rest during the holidays, which is absolutely normal behavior. Affiliate count still continues to increase, 1,712 at the end of November 24. We are now 1,846 at the end of November 25. So 1,846 affiliates have blessed us with their presence here at Benchmark, and we're very happy about that. It's a 7.89% increase. That is about our monthly year-over-year increase as we gather agents to us. Now, that's a lot of numbers, and most of you are right-brainers, and numbers kind of freak you out, so I'm going to show you a picture that reflects all of that. Gross sales, you can see the line there that I'm showing, that I'm pointing to with the big red arrow, that is 2025. And you can see that we are way ahead of the last 3 years for 2025. And it looks like here we are on the 19th of December that trend line will continue to be way above the last 3 years. And that is, again, specific to Benchmark. We're not doing industry numbers. We're doing benchmark numbers here, okay? Just want to reiterate that for you. Commissions follow the same trend line. You can see the red line here, how we have pretty much been ahead of the last 3 years. 2022, the first part of 2022 was still one of the outliers, so that's still in there. Ignore that. That's gone. That was driven by cheap money. It ain't never going to happen again. Forget about it. Here we are right here. We're above the last 3 years at this time, at the end of November for the last 3 years. Okay, so moving on to transaction count, which is kind of a real metric that we track since we're a fee-based model, so we get paid per transaction. You can see that we, again, are superseding everything that was happening in the last 3 years. So that's the month by month. You can see the trend lines and the seasonality there. Now let's move it to a year-to-date calculation at the end of November 24. Okay, this is 24. We had closed out $3.9 billion in real estate sales. That's billion with a B, okay? Not anything else. That's 3.9 billion. We had paid out $95 million at 100% commission on 8,153 transactions. At the same time, the market had done almost 30,000 transactions in 24, and our average sales price, Benchmark's average sales price, 484,811. So how does that compare to the end of November, year to date, 25? There you go. Again, you blew it out. So there you are, 4.35 billion. And this again is the end of November. 102 million paid out at 100% commission. That's a 10% increase, a 6.7% increase. Our transaction count is running 8.6% ahead of last year, which in the market is down 3.4% year to date. And our sales price, average sales price, increased just slightly. We fully expect to see that average sales price begin to ease as we move through 2026. As well it should, because we had this tremendous run up. We've covered that in previous videos. You can go watch those and hear all about it. Again, the main market we want to focus on is this one right here. How did we do compared to the market? Benchmark was 12% ahead of the greater Nashville MSA market. So congratulations, Benchmark. You should be retching your elbow, patting yourself on the back right now. I hope that's what you're doing because you did an outstanding job so far. We'll see how December turns out, but it's looking really good so far. I fully expect this number to actually grow a little bit, but we'll see. You're not going to get it sitting at home drinking hot chocolate. You're going to get it by getting out there and getting a sale. That's how you do this. Okay, enough with the commercials and the numbers and all the updating. Now we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of what you came here today to listen to. And the whole focus of our messaging is that we've got your back. We've got your back with support. We got your back with forms. We got your back with broker expertise. I would stack our broker expertise against any in the country. These guys are excellent. And if you happen to be in a room where you see one or two sitting around the room, you ought to go over and give them a big hug right now, is because they really know how to do stuff. So we're going to start off with the forms. And this is where David Lee is going to help us out here because we're going to walk through it. I'm going to still drive the slideshow, but he's going to talk more. But we want to establish some ground rules, first of all. Introductions, we've already had those. It's Phillip, David, and Scott's show, kind of ding, ling, and ling monkey show. I don't know what you want to call it, but we're here to help you. To be clear in this conversation, we're not going to do comparisons of our forms versus TAR forms. We are doing our stuff. They can do their stuff. We'll all coexist happily ever after, right? So we're not going to do a comparison there. So if you do have a question on form, number one, we've been doing quite a few roadshow classes, and if you haven't shown up for those, then shame on you, because that was your real opportunity to ask questions. But we can actually ask some here if we want to, and if it's not too harsh, we might actually answer the question. But anyway, we're not going to discuss a comparison with TAR forms. Use of the new Benchmark purchase and sale agreement in all of our forms actually is, except for the listing agreement and buyer rep agreement, which we've talked about, we'll talk about again here in a second, they're optional. You can use the TAR, everybody's a realtor this year. You can use the TAR forms, but we also are talking to other brokerages about licensing our forms to them. We are getting calls from multiple brokers across the state wanting to license our forms because they are so consumer focused and so simple to use. And we work really hard to do that. We're going to have a question and answer at the end. Enter your stuff. It says chat, but really enter it into Q&A, and we will get to it as we can. Our monitor will help with those as well. But listen carefully and take notes on this stuff. Our forms are copyrighted. But if you are a broker somewhere outside of Benchmark and you would like to talk about licensing our forms, then reach out to Scott at benchmarkrealtytn.com and we can make an arrangement. Our whole focus here is on helping make the industry better. It's not on anything other than that. So the benchmark forms list. David, do you want to kind of take it on from here now? So I'll drive the slideshow and you can say, next slide, please, and we'll go to the next slide. How about that?
That sounds great. Let's go. All right. So today we're going to be covering the library at a glance, the buyer's rep, listing agreement, purchase and sale agreement, property condition disclosure, lead-based paint disclosure, and a few other forms. So Phillip, let's roll to the forms list. As you can see here, forms 100 series go towards the listing specific documents. The 300 series will be purchase specific documents. If you're wanting to see these forms, we've got the form list already up on Dash. Thank you, Gus. And we also have all these forms up, so you can start reviewing them as soon as you get off this presentation. Let's move on to the next slide, which will show all the different forms in our library that are general forms.
Let me make one quick comment, if I may.
Sure.
Interject here. I want y'all to notice this section right here. Let me get my highlighter here again. Number of pages, okay? The right to sell listing agreement is 5 pages. Property condition disclosure is 4. Going down through here. Purchase and sale agreement, 9 pages. We're going to talk about that one in detail here in just a second, but I want you to notice the simplicity that we've installed into this forms network. So just wanted to call that out real fast, and I'll move on to the next slide.
Okay, here we have all the general forms. As you can see, it's got basically everything that you need here. The 500 series is your general forms, and we actually even have a couple of lease forms down at the very bottom in the 700 series. The reason we gave a full library of forms is for a couple of reasons. Number one, we're going to be compliant with the class action lawsuits. And a recurring theme you're going to see throughout this whole presentation is that we want to be transparent in the transaction for our consumers. We want to give our responsibilities, and we want you to be perfectly clear and upfront of how you're being compensated. As you probably already know, and hopefully you already know, your benchmark buyer's rep agreement and listing agreement have been mandatory since June 1. The rest of the library, you can pick and choose. We want you to run your business the way that you want to do it, but your listing agreement and your buyer's rep are requirements. We've done a little bit of refreshing to our buyer's rep and listing agreement, and we're going to start with the buyer's rep agreement. There weren't a lot of changes on the buyer's rep agreement. We tightened up some of the legal ease, and then also we put some numbers to the left-hand side, and then on the final page we added in some extra lines so that if you are representing your buyers with another agent, that both of you can sign. We'll move on to the listing agreement. Once again, we made a couple of changes in the section in line 21. We start the listing agreement as soon as you and your sellers have signed the agreement. No longer are we having the date that you have to put in there. It starts when everybody's signed. One thing that I would say about this is that if you're going to list your property as coming soon on the MLS, or you're putting a sign in the yard, or showings to start at a later time, put that in the additional terms later in the agreement. All right, Phillip, we are ready to move on to the end. The only other thing that we did here was add in an extra line down in 235 so that if you're co-listing this with another benchmark agent, you both have room to sign. Let's move on.
Notice how the page count on these things is. You know, they're real simple. So if you go back to the buyer rep agreement, right, it is 3 pages. That's the listing agreement. So if you go back to the buyer rep agreement, there you are, 3 pages. And then the listing agreement is 5 pages, and it's really simple. All of your brokers have been trained on this. So if you have a question, shame on you if you haven't been to class, but if you haven't been to class and you have a question, the brokers are available to help answer those, as is David, as is Scott, as am I, if you want that. So anyway, moving on to here, purchase and sale agreement.
All right, we're moving on to the purchase and sale agreement. Once again, we want this to be a clear and concise form. It's developed by a lot of us that actually sell real estate. It's not a committee sitting somewhere that has never sold a property before. So let's move on to the actual agreement. The biggest and most exciting part of this is now the benchmark purchase and sale agreement is 5 forms rolled into one. It covers your confirmation of agency, personal interest disclosure, disclaimer notice, and wire fraud. And it's all in one purchase and sale agreement. It's only 9 pages. The TAR agreement is 11 pages. And if you combined all of those forms together, it would have been 18 pages. And now it's only 9. So starting on the purchase and sale agreement, let's look at lines 9 through 11 and 16 through 18. These take the place of your confirmation of agency. You'll put in your agency in 9 through 11, and then in 16 through 18, we want you to put in how the listing agent is representing their sellers. First thing I would say is go on to MLS, see if it's in their media section in a confirmation of agency. If it's not there, call or text or reach out to the listing agent and see if they will tell you. If you still can't find it, check the designated agent for the seller, because we consider if the property is listed on MLS, there's a sign in the yard, there's a lockbox on the door, that the agent is a designated agent for the seller. On this same page, moving down to line 30, in the purchase price, we only want the numerical value. No reason to write it out like a check anymore. The attorneys are telling us that causes ambiguity, so just put in the number. Now we'll move on to page 2. We want to start in line 57. Your earnest money is now due on a calendar day. No longer do you have to count on your fingers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to figure out when the earnest money is due. You actually have a day and time that it is due. One thing to keep in mind here is Benchmark does not hold earnest money. Now we'll move on to the next page. And down in line 150, your inspection deadline. It is also a calendar day. Once again, you don't have to go back and count on your fingers and figure out how many days when your inspection deadline is due. This has been a point of contention with our brokers and our agents for quite a while. Now that we have an actual date, there's no trying to figure out which day it is. So it is actually written in your agreement. And one thing I'd like to encourage on this as well, let's be professional here and look at a calendar when you're figuring this out so that you put in an actual work day and work hours into these deadlines. Another point that I would like to make here as well is we know as agents, a lot of times you're negotiating and it takes a day, 2, 3, 4 days to get your offer negotiated out. If you're doing that, you're eating into your inspection deadlines. So make sure on your final counteroffer that you go back and you put in when your inspection deadline is actually going to be, because we want you to have plenty of time to do your inspections and get your earnest money turned in. All right, moving on to the next page. One point I will make is in the resolution period in line 181. Those are still days because you can actually turn in your repair proposal earlier than your inspection deadline, and that actually starts your resolution period at that point. So we couldn't put in a calendar day there. That actually has to be a number of days. Moving on down to lines 194 through 218. This box takes the place of your disclaimer notice, so you will not need that form if you're using the Benchmark purchase and sale agreement. Moving on to page 5, a couple of points here. Down in line 255 through 260, we need to have how our buyers are taking title to the title company 7 days ahead of time. We don't need any last minute changes, so please make sure that information is into the title company a week ahead of time. And the same thing goes with if your property is in an HOA. We're requesting that the sellers in their HOA have all their payoff and other financials into the title company 7 days ahead of time as well. The reason for this is that we're trying to stop so many delayed closings. Let's move on to page 6 now. In lines 292 through 299, we're talking about title insurance. And on the TAR agreement, it just says title expenses. This is causing a lot of confusion of what actually are the title expenses. It's not the buyer's cost that the title company is charging them. So we clarified that. We're just specifically talking about title insurance expenses. This is one fee. There is not a buyer's portion or seller's portion. We see that in compliance all the time, and we have to send it back to the agents. Either the buyer can pay, the seller can pay, or they can split it in any fashion that they want to split it, but there is no ownership of fees here. The other thing that I want to cover here is in line 292, the Alta homeowners policy. Our benchmark purchase and sale defaults to the title insurance is an enhanced policy. Once again, I'll repeat that. Our default is an enhanced policy. If you're only wanting a standard policy, it needs to be written down in the special stipulations.
So there's confusion on that said, well, I don't see the word enhanced, but this Alta homeowners policy is the name of the enhanced policy. So we've named the policy. That gives you coverage, that gives your seller coverage, gives your buyer better coverage, and everybody gets a get out of jail free pass. However, if the buyer wants to change that here on 298, they have the ability to do that. It's up to them, as long as it doesn't result in a higher cost, more expense to the seller.
One thing I want to point out about that is we posted yesterday the pamphlet from First American, so you can sit and see a checklist. You can give it to your buyers, you can give it to the other agent, so that you can see all the extra coverages that you get in an enhanced policy. So just go on Dash, find that, print it out, and give it to whoever you like. So let's move on to the next page now. On page 7, the key point here is everything in this contract is calendar days. If we fall on a weekend or holiday, it rolls to the next day. The only exceptions that we have to that are your offer deadline and a repair deadline.
That's 332 through 341.
On the next page, what I really wanted to point out here is we have given you 25 lines of special stipulations. We want to give you plenty of room so that if you need to write anything extra into your offer, please put it right there. On the final page of the purchase and sale, lines 443 through 450, you've got a box there that takes the place of your wire fraud notification. Just get your buyers to initial there and you're good to go. And then you're to your signature page.
And then we reiterated down here on 480, where to find the definition of days as used in this agreement. So we're trying to make it as simplistic as possible.
Once again, you've got 5 forms rolled into one here. I wanted to give an example of a contract I got in last week. We had a facilitator who was writing the offer for both the buyer and the seller, and it just hit me out of the blue that look at all the amount of paperwork they could have saved because their buyer and seller would both sign a benchmark purchase and sale, and you're eliminating both parties having to sign confirmation of agency, both parties having to sign disclaimer notices. It could have saved him a ton of time. Moving on to the property condition disclosure. This is a form that the General Assembly drew up. Through the years, TAR has added more and more to it. We feel like it adds extra liability on your sellers. The more they fill out, the more they're obligated to be truthful in. So we've gone back to the form that the General Assembly drew up. One thing I would want you want to encourage you to do on this is after your sellers have filled this out, go back and review it. Make sure they haven't skipped anything. And if they have, send it back to them so that they can finish filling it out. That way, when you publish it on the MLS or you turn it into compliance, that you have a complete form here.
And as you can see, it's only 4 pages.
Moving on to the lead-based paint disclosure. There shouldn't be a lot new here. This is an EPA required form. The area I want to focus on in this is in line 35. We want to make sure that your buyers have a copy of the Protect Your Family from Lead form. It's a pamphlet. We have the pamphlet in our forms library as Form 512. We also have it up on Dash. It's on the EPA website. If you need it in a different language, go to the EPA website. They have multiple languages that you can print this out and give to your clients. I personally would load it to my computer so that it's available anytime that you need it. The other area we wanted to focus on is in lines 48 through 50. We get a lot of questions on this. It says purchaser's agent has informed the seller of the seller's obligation and is aware of their responsibility to ensure compliance. So what does that mean? Basically, this is if you're given an offer on a for sale by owner property. Otherwise, it doesn't really apply. So if you have a purchase contract that is on a for sale by owner of a home that's built before 1978, it is your job to notify the seller that they have to fill out this form, and you would initial right there. If you don't have that situation, just put NA in the blank and let's move on. All right, moving on to the multiple offer disclosure and notification. This would be if you have a listing and you have multiple offers on it. This is the form you and your sellers would fill out. A few key points on it. Number one, all offers must be in writing. We're not taking verbal offers. Number two is where you would put your offer deadline so that all the agents know when that is. Number three states that when you receive all your offers, you will present them to your seller no later than 5 p.m. the following day. And then finally, in line 4, on all the rejected offers, you must get them filled out in writing with the rejection box checked and send them back to each of the buyer's agents.
Make a comment on that, if I may, also, that this is a TREC regulation. It is also part of the Code of Ethics. So if an offer is rejected, it needs to be signed and returned as rejected. And that is true in every case, both whether you're representing the buyer or the seller.
All right, on the notification form, I want to focus on 2 different sections here. The top section, which is lines 10 through 29, these are for notices of termination. We've got all the usual players here: financial, contingency, appraisal, inspection. So just check the appropriate box. If you need to write in for any other reason, check box in line 25 and write in what you need. The one thing that I'll also want to remind you here is that you must complete an earnest money / trust money release form, because that releases all the obligations at that point and all the liability. So we also have notices for other reasons. That's going to be down in the bottom section between lines 30 and 43. We can see some of the usual suspects there as well. And then you also have a nice section to write in whatever you want.
Okay.
Confirmation of agency. If you'll notice in the box, we've taken out a little bit here. We took out the dual agency boxes because Benchmark does not practice dual agency, so it's no longer an option for you there. And also we went ahead and added the working with the real estate professional to the back end of this forms, just so that we're being clear with any of our clients that want to know how we are representing them.
It's actually a very simplified version because it's only 2 pages, and I think the comparison would be a 3-page document that exists elsewhere. We've made that part of the confirmation agency, but if you are using the benchmark purchase and sale agreement, this is incorporated in the agreement. You do not need an extra document, but we did create the extra document just so you could have it in case you were working on the another side of the transaction where you needed it.
Okay, moving on to transparency with our clients. This is in our policy manual now as of effective of right around Thanksgiving. We want to be absolutely as clear as possible how we're getting our compensation. The NAR had a vote and they declined that we were going to notify our clients of referral fees. We feel like that it would have been right to move forward with disclosing that because we want to be absolutely as clear as possible with our clients of how we're receiving compensation. We've reflected this in your RESPA agreements, and it's on both forms, whether you're paying the $195 broker fee or not. In the referral fee section, if you are paying out a referral fee, please fill out that amount in the blank that is there. If you're sending out a referral fee, we totally encourage you to fill it out as well with your clients and just keep it in a file. If you're not paying any type of referral fee, then check the last box. And we're considering that if you're a team member and you're paying a portion over to your team leader, you do not need to fill out the referral fee section. But if it is agent to agent outside of that situation, you need to fill out the referral fee section.
So as it says here, licensee must check one box below. So if one of these is not checked, it'll come back to you through compliance. This is the one that has the broker-based commission fee on it. And as you can see over here, the same 4 or 5 lines exist in the one that does not have the broker-based commission.
Okay, so that wraps up my portion of the presentation. The one thing I want to express, first of all, is that these forms are now on Dash, so you can go look them up. They will be on dot loop before the first of the year, and we've already submitted docs to Transaction Desk as well. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of control with Transaction Desk, so they're going to load these forms up in their leisure, but hopefully they're going to be there by January the 1st or sometime shortly thereafter.
I would say certainly by the 15th, they should have them uploaded. But in the meantime, if you want to use them, benchmark Dash, and if you use dot loop, they'll be up there pretty quick. Dot loop is a lot more responsive to our needs. On the benchmark Dash, you can find them under documents, and it's benchmark copyrighted forms that you see there. Same place you would go if you're in another state to look for your documents. And then you can see the entire list, and each one of these is an active PDF. Pretty straightforward stuff. Those are just screenshots straight from the Dash. Now, we have had, well, what ifs that come up in the classes that David has been doing, and some of them are reasonable, some of them are superstition. We'll just call it indoctrinated superstition. How about that for a mild comment of what most comments come from? And let's just run through those real fast. What if the MLS listing says offers only on TNR forms? Well, number one, this verbiage conflicts with TREC Rule 1260-02-.08. So that language should not exist in the MLS. A brokerage cannot really refuse an offer. In other words, they would be in violation of TREC if they refuse to accept an offer. So even if it's written on a blank piece of white paper, if you write an offer, you send it to them, they must present it. That is part of TREC rules. It's also a conflict with the highly touted Code of Ethics, right? TREC Code of Ethics Practice 1.6 says that all realtors will submit offers and counteroffers objectively and as quickly as possible. And then 1.7 says that we'll present everything in writing and continue to present those offers. Another complaint or objection that we've heard, what if using benchmark forms puts my buyer at a disadvantage? And my frank response to that is, have you ever sold new construction? Because if you have ever sold new construction, you have not used a state-provided association form. You have used that builder's form. So the question then turn back around and say, do you feel that puts your buyer at a disadvantage? Well, no, it didn't, because it was created by an attorney, and all the contract legalese is contract legalese. It's not something that's unique, proprietary to one organization. So why do we do all this? Real simple. The class action lawsuits put a lot of rules and a lot of impressions out there, and it costs these companies that you see on the board there nearly $1 billion in settlement costs to eliminate the class action lawsuits, which are not over, by the way. We've settled the seller sides, but we may or may not have settled the buyer sides. So our emphasis is to go focus on the consumer, stop worrying about the way it used to be, focus on the consumer, try to make things as easy, as simple, and as transparent as possible. The one that I just circled there is part of United. We are part of United Real Estate, as everybody knows, and our settlement was $3.75 million, of which Benchmark Realty had a charge of $899,000. And to me, that's money that was stolen out of our pockets by the way the class action lawsuits were handled. So we are going to do everything possible to meet the letter of the law, the rule, as well as the spirit of the rule in the transaction to make sure we have transparency. But the main thing we want to emphasize here is that we got your back. We are going to make sure that Benchmark is not involved in any more class action lawsuits. That's a really big deal. You want to talk about that, Scott?
Yeah, I want to talk about David for just a second, actually, the guy that everybody just heard from. So David's been a successful real estate agent for years. About 8 or 9 months ago, he jumped in with both feet this role of director of compliance and helped roll out this project. I've been able to sit in several education pieces that David brings to the offices, and they're excellent. I want to make sure that you know if you're missing these, you are selling yourself short. When you see David's name on the educational calendar and he's come to your location, make sure and be there. He brings a lot of this good information to you. Just want to let that be known.
100%. Get off your butt, get in class, rearrange your schedule, rearrange your planning. Make sure you are focused on your career, because, we can provide all these tools and all this information and everything that we do to help you become successful. But if you don't reach over and lean into it, what happens? It's no different than that hammer you've got in your toolbox in the garage. If you don't pick it up and use it, it does absolutely no good to anybody. And that's everything we're talking about here is exactly the same way. You must lean in to what we're offering here. With that said, let's pause and answer some questions here. It looks like we've got, Lane Womack says he loves surprises, but that's Lane. So, yeah, okay. We're going to ignore Lane. We have one here from Ronnie. Since association dues have already been paid for the year 2026, does this mean that one has to use only TAR forms? No, they are completely optional. And as you just saw, they're now available on the Dash. They will soon be available on Dotloop and Transaction Desk. So you can use either one, and we encourage you to use them, become accustomed to them, share them with your friends. And if another broker wants to utilize them, then reach out to Scott. We can figure out a way to make this happen, because we are trying to help the consumer. We are trying to help the industry. The old way is dead, y'all. The old way is dead. We must shine a new light on the way we do business and move forward. Let's see. If a buyer wants to sign the offer or respond due to the offer being too low, can we let the offer expire without a response? Every offer must be responded to in one way, form, or fashion. That's the TREC rule. And if you violate that, then you risk a TREC complaint from the buyer. Let's see, Norma here. On the current lead-based paint disclosure has some language, especially on line 44, that I didn't see in our new lead-based paint. Can I see the language on the revised lead-based paint? Those documents are available on Dash. You could go pull it up, and I will emphasize that that is not a benchmark document. That is an EPA form that we are using. So the federal government has decided that this is the form that we should use. That's what Benchmark has chosen to use. So go pull that up and take a look and see if you can answer your question. If not, feel free to give your broker a call. Okay, and one last here. Let me just read through this real fast before I read it out loud and embarrass myself. So this is valid. So Guy, let me answer Guy Ritchie is answering this question. Other agents are going to be skeptical about our forms. Well, I disagree, but okay. Not needing to complete separate disclosures, confirmation of agency, etc. How much time do we want to spend educating other agents on the points you've made today? Good question. Any thought of adding a statement somewhere that indicates these forms have been reviewed and approved by X to alleviate those concerns? No. Those would create those documents. So statements such as these have been approved by so-and-so and so-and-so places a lot of liability on that individual person. Rest assured that they have been developed in conjunction with a team of brokers, practitioners, and attorneys. So it's not just something that Phillip and David came up with on our own. These are qualified forms. Now, I will say that if another agent on the other side says, oh, you got to fill out my confirmation of agency, do it. Isn't that right, David? This is one of the questions I think you've been having in class.
Absolutely. I get it in every class. And what we're telling people is be a good partner in your contract. If they ask you to fill out a confirmation of agency, go ahead and do it.
Even if you've already done it, it's fine, right? It's fine. As a listing agent, can you ask a buyer agent if they would consider putting their offer on our PSA form? Sure. That's a pretty simple answer. It's like providing, as long as they're a licensee. I mean, you don't want to give this form to somebody who's not licensed, but we don't mind sharing the forms. We are trying to help the industry. So whatever that takes, whatever that feels like, go for it. And if you're not sure, give your broker a buzz and run it past them as a head check. Okay. So that concludes that portion. David, thank you very much. As Scott said, you have, this is a great indication of the depth of bench that you have at Benchmark. Pardon the pun. Didn't mean it that way. The depth of experience that you have at Benchmark. So your brokers, I mean, if you add all of our experience together, you've probably got 150 years worth of experience. David, Scott, and I collectively have represented buyers and sellers personally in over 2,000 transactions. Am I right on that, guys? That's about right. If you add up just our three experience.
Absolutely. It's probably spot on.
Yeah. So, I mean, my alone is 980 something, I think 960 something. I forget what the number is, but all that is irrelevant at this point. The point is that we are practitioners who've actually been in the trenches. So we collectively, and brokerage team especially, has the experience to back you up and to help walk through scenarios. Do not feel like you are ever on an island by yourself. But we want to move forward with the rest of the program here. And you know, we're coming up on a new year. I know that everybody's already done all their business planning, right? Right? Okay. Half of you just lied to yourself because you haven't done any. You probably haven't done any business planning for 2025, have you? We're not going to do business planning today, but we're going to emphasize, I'm going to give you 4 tips to help you get started in 2026 successfully and to thrive. Because as we used to say down on the farm, honey, the world ain't what it used to be. The world has changed. And if you haven't changed and adjusted and modified your approach to it, then you're going to be left further and further and further behind. The gap between those who actually succeed and those who are wannabes is actually widening, and you need to pick. You need to pick right now whether you're going to be one that's on the winning side or one that's on the losing side. Every year we have a washout of several agents, and they just get down to the point where they're not producing any business. They can't make the math work, so they just turn in their license. You know, quitters. I'm just calling it what it is. They decided somewhere along the way that they didn't want to do that. There's nothing wrong with that. But my point is, you don't have to fall into that category by default. If you are intentional about your approach to your business, then you can absolutely succeed in the coming year. So I want to try to give you a blueprint, as it will. This is very brief. It's not going to be a whole bunch of slides. It's a blueprint on how to get started in the year ahead. And it's a mentality shift. Just because it's the way it's always been, those are the 7 worst words in the English language. We do it this way because we've always done it that way. If you adopt that approach, you're absolutely going to fail in 26. I'm sorry. You just are absolutely going to fail. Why? Because the game has changed. The world is different. We have the lawsuits. We have the technology. We have all these impacts. We have a consumer out there that is more educated today than they ever have been. I don't know if you've been paying attention to the news, but your big friend Google just got in real estate this week, just announced that they were getting into real estate, and they are going to absolutely eviscerate Zillow when they do that. It's just going to happen. They have got more money and more depth of technology than Zillow ever thought about having. It's going to be a very competitive fight. All of it is focused on the consumer, and you need to be as well. Technology will never replace you because all these technology companies, the thing that they always miss out on is that last mile to the house. You can do all the search you want. You can do all the pricing you want. You can do all the analysis you want. But that last mile of the house of actually holding somebody's hand as they make a decision to buy a house or sell a house is your superpower. That is your superpower. Employ that, deploy that very intentionally. We'll give you 4 strategies. Number 1, conduct a 2025 business review and build a data-driven 2026 plan. What does that mean? Where's your leads come from? How many days on market were your listings? What were your conversion rates? And then break down your clients by type. These are important steps. You have to, what's the old financial analysis? They said, previous performance is no indication of future performance. Well, in our world, it is. It really is. If you study where your business is coming from, then you know where your business is coming from. So, there was a survey published a few years ago, and I have cited this over and over and over again, this survey, that immediately following a transaction, 99% of clients said they would use the same agent again. 2 years later, that number drops to 8% that actually did use the same client, use the same agent. Why? Because you didn't stay in touch. Everybody who has ever done business with you needs to be touched by you every single month.
Phillip,
This is not. Go ahead. Sorry.
They say the average consumer knows at a minimum of 5 real estate agents. So if you're not doing something to stay top of mind every time the subject real estate comes up to them, you're going to fail to that person. And they will choose you over brother, sister, aunt, church member if you're top of mind.
That's exactly right. But you have to follow the action steps. You have to have specific written action steps to be able to do this, to remind you. And number 1 is quit spending money on wasteful stuff. Quit chasing fantasy. Quit buying leads that don't pan out. A lot of agents are just spending gobs of money on leads thinking that, if I just get leads, Well, honey, you got a whole battery of people you could do business with and the folks that you've already sold houses to and sold properties to. You're not cultivating the farm that you have been given. You're not cultivating the farm that you've already purchased. You're going looking for another field to cultivate instead of working on the one that you've already developed. And then you need to develop goals. This is the big one. You have to have goals, and they have to be SMART goals, right? And everybody knows what SMART goals are, right? Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound. And why this matters is because you can always hit a target you don't have, but you must have targets, and the targets must be in writing. I do this religiously, and invariably at the end of the year, I go back and look and compare how I did that year to what my goal was that I set at the beginning of the year. I'm always within a very narrow margin of difference, either plus or minus. But had I not written a goal, I wouldn't have even been in the same ball game. Once you've identified getting rid of your low ROI spending, you scale your high-performing activities. You scale the stuff that works. You figure out what works. But you can't figure out what works unless you sit down and analyze this stuff and actually do it in writing. Key points here. Key points. By the way, all of this This slide deck is going to be on Benchmark Dash this afternoon. So you can take notes if you want to, but right now you can just kind of relax and listen to Phillip and Scott and David preach at you. Strategy number 2, double down on referral and sphere of influence business. Everybody who knows you needs to know this is how you feed your family. If you don't do that, what are you doing? You're fundamentally taking food out of your children's mouths because you haven't stood up and said, this is how I feed my family. This is the way that I generate income. So how do you do that? Create a list. Where did your business come from? This works with the other one that we just talked about. Where did your business come from? Create an A, B, and a C tier prospect list, and then drill down into it. Ask for referrals. Ask for referrals from people that haven't bought houses from you. Do you know anybody that's going to buy or sell a house this year? Do you know anybody that's going to move this year? And listen when you go to parties. What are people talking about? We just talked about RealScout a while ago, right? And you saw the guy making a video walking through a house using AI. You don't even have to be technologically literate now. You can just talk to it and tell it what you want, and it will do it and do your video. Use that as a prospecting tool. Put that out on social media, but always have value. The kitties and puppies are cute, but they don't sell properties. Use value. Bring dollars to the table. Bring facts to the table. Be the source of information they can't get somewhere else. If they can get it somewhere else, why do they need you? You have to be the differentiating point on that and make sure they understand it, and then you have to track it. You have to make sure you understand where your business is coming from. But why does this matter? Because the Mid-South move-up and relocation market is very lucrative. Third point of destination in the country from people moving here from other places. If you're not taking advantage of that, then you're missing out. How are you going to take advantage of that? By being present. By being present in social media with valid points of interest that draw people in. And intentional relationship building is key in all of this. Strategy number 3, your digital presence sucks. Go fix it today. That's plain, simple truth. Am I lying about that, Scott? You're laughing at me, but you know I'm telling the truth.
No, that was pretty frank, honest.
You know why? Why it stinks? Because you don't focus on it. You don't deliver something of value. You're talking about, and you know, I love kids. I've got grandson, 3 years old, born on my birthday. Kid has no idea what's in store for him. I would love to post pictures out there, but have you ever seen a picture of my grandson on social media? No. You know why? It's not value to the viewer. It's value to me, but it's not value to the viewer. And that's how you have to think in your digital presence and your listing presentation, your buyer rep presentation. By the way, we provide all this for you on the dash. All you have to do is download it and homogenize it for you and your client prospects, and you have a fully loaded listing presentation just sitting there our marketing team has put together. What else do you want? Again, the hammer in the toolbox sitting in the garage does nobody any good unless you go get the frickin' hammer and use it. And by the way, the more you use it, the better you become at using it, and the more effective your use of it becomes. You see my analogy there? I hope that makes sense to you. Make sure your online profile is professional. Stop with the kitties and puppies. Stop. That's not value to the viewer. That's value to you, not value to the viewer. Make sure that you're consistently creating content. We just gave you a tool with the AI feature on RealScout. That's value content you can utilize starting today. Also, if you've got a customized approach, you want to use that. That's custom content as well. And make sure that in every listing that you have or every buyer experience that you have, that you are documenting this with video and photography, because that's what people want to see. They want to see evidence and proof of performance, not your kitties and your puppies. Okay. Implementation ideas, make sure you've got a budget for it. Set money aside specifically. Know exactly what you're going to spend the money on, what you're going to spend the money for, and how much money you're going to spend so that you don't spend yourself into oblivion, because that's real easy to do with all the solicitations you receive in the mail. I know, I get them too. Regular profile audits to make sure that you are actually transmitting the message that you want to transmit. and create repeatable listing process. Just get in the rhythm. You know, if you, all right, so shameless plug here. I wrote a book, right? Everybody knows that by now. If you don't, you've been living under a rock somewhere. But standardized processes are key to success in everything you do. Once you figure out something that works for you, document that and then do it the same way every time. Once you have success, document it. And again, leverage the benchmark tools. I can't say that enough. Here's the thing. Consumers have already judged you before they ever pick up the phone and call you, before they ever send you an email, before they ever send you a text. They have already looked at your profiles everywhere you are, and they have completely judged whether or not this is the person they want to do business with or not. Because here's the deal. Everybody has a radio station playing in their head. It's called WIFM. What's in it for me? What's in it for me? That's the delivery question that you need to be answering, or that's the question you need to be delivering an answer to with every communication you have with the public. I'll get off my soapbox here in a minute. Strategy number 4, professional development. Commendation to all of those that are sitting in the classroom this morning watching this on live view. Good job, guys. You got up on a chilly morning, you got in the office, and you're learning something new. Hopefully you're learning something new. David was able to teach you about forms anyway. But that's what I'm talking about, is the actually leaning in and being interested, not only in just what we're offering, but also what's going on in the industry, what's going on in the world, what's going on in business, what's going on in the economy. These are all impacting factors. Can anybody tell me right this minute what today's 30-year mortgage rate is? I'm sure there's some of you that can. The point is, every one of you should be able to say that instantly and be the source of information for your consumer as to what's happening in the world. Pricing strategies are key. I mean, we've talked about this in previous videos, that if you price a home wrong, if you listen to the consumer's needy voice and says, oh, I got to have this, even though the house down the street was just sold for $200,000 less, and you take that listing, that's your fault. That is nobody else's fault but yours. But you can't rebut that false pricing unless you have facts. You have to have facts. We provide those facts. Those facts are available in multiple places. Be sure you know what's going on in the liability world, right? You say, well, I got A&O insurance, and this false bravado of I don't have to worry about it, I got insurance. Well, I can tell you that one of our brokers just sat in a deposition yesterday, and she was very uncomfortable. That agent's probably going to not be licensed. They're no longer with Benchmark. We let them go a long time ago. But when you find yourself in that situation, and you never know when those situations are going to arise, stop the cavalier attitude. Pay attention to the forms. Make sure you understand the communications in all of your text messages, all your email messages, all your phone calls. Everything you do in this universe is documented somewhere, and it's all admissible in a court case or a complaint. Keep that in mind before you send that next text message. Contract mastery. Do you know what the terms of the contract read? I could set 100 agents in a room and say, how many of you have read the contract word for word? And it'd probably be 3 or 4 that have actually read it. Now, our agents are a lot better. Our affiliates are a lot better because we focus so hard on this. But I'm talking about universally. The ignorance of the contract language gobsmacks me every time I get in a transaction. Have you read it? If you haven't read it, spend some time on it, understand what it means. If you don't understand, ask questions, ask questions, ask questions. And then finally, consulting skills. To focus on your consulting skills. People don't need you for information anymore, except for pricing strategies. They don't need you to find the houses anymore. They used to be able to do, that was our superpower, right? Now it's that last mile of the house. Holding their hands, getting them across the finish line, making sure all the T's are crossed and I's are dotted. That is your superpower. That's your consulting skills. That's what you need to focus on. And then also you might want to think about developing a micro specialty. A specialty niche is the #1 way to guarantee success in this industry long term. And there are multiples out there, and you don't have to be pigeonholed into just one. You can pick several. But here's just some examples you see on the screen. You want to be a relocation. You want to be a downsizing, right sizing. You want to be a new construction expert. You want to work with VA buyers. We have lots of agents in Clarksville that work with VA buyers, and they do extremely good jobs and good purposes there. More importantly, the hyper-local neighborhood expert. Everybody in your neighborhood needs to know you're in the real estate business. This is how you feed your family. You're the expert for what's happening in that neighborhood. And if you do that, if you focus on that, then you develop some really strong business channels, multiple channels. The more channels, the better. The gap is widening. Which side are you going to choose? It's completely up to you. You can either get yourself in gear and refine your business for 2026, or you can continue to slide further and further and further behind as technology continues to creep in on you. It's never going to replace you, but it's going to replace enough of you that there will be fewer next year than there are this year. All right, Scott, do you have any conversations? David, y'all have any conversations or comments on all that preaching I just did?
Yeah, along the lines of that preaching, we discussed making sure we had a plan for 2026, right? I noticed what a lot of people do is wait until they think they have a perfect plan. And the plan, I don't think, is ever perfect. It's always evolving. So don't wait until you have a perfect plan. For some reason in our business, to a lot of people, database is considered a 4-letter word. If you ask a room of 100 real estate agents how many use a database on a daily basis, some people are going to raise their hands and they're probably lying, right? But you're not a salesperson. The word real estate sales kind of gets under my skin a little bit. These days and times, you're an advisor. You're an advisor to your consumer, and you're also a business owner. And unless you have measurable practices in place, you can't grow your business. And some people may not want to grow their business. Maybe they just like what they do, and it's perfectly fine. But if you want to grow your business, you have to wake up with intention every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, knowing what you're going to do. And I think if you wake up wondering what you're going to do this day, you've already lost the day. Go ahead and start over tomorrow with a plan. So just don't wait till it's perfect. Get a database set and work it every day with intention, and your business has no choice but to grow.
Perfect is the enemy of success. There is no perfect in this world. That's what you're saying. All right. But I'll tell you, you can never get there unless you plan to get there. And if the failing to plan means you're planning to fail, that's a cliche, I know. But what you're saying there, Scott, was very true. And I do this in some of the classes that I teach. I'll ask the class members, I say, who in here wants to double their income next year? And of course, universally, everybody raises their hand, right? I said, okay, here's the trick. At the end of every day, take 15 minutes and write down the 5 most important things for you to do the next day. And magically, your income will double next year. Why? Because you start what you're just saying there, Scott. You start the day off running. You don't fumble and bumble around, and then it's 11 o'clock before you ever get out of bed. You know exactly what you're going to do. You hit the ground running, and you do it, and you will be much more successful if you'll do something just that simple.
And with that plan, if you wake up and have a plan to do something every day, you're going to find that you're getting 3 to 4 times as much done in half the time you used to. So you can take a 40-hour work week and make it a 15-hour productive work week. And you're still going to see successes from that and have more time to do more. And if you lean on the technology that's available, we're in a time where we're busier than anybody has ever been in the history of people. And we have all this technology that's supposed to make our lives easier. And a lot of it's fluff. Find what really helps you get more out of your time, implement it, and you can, the sky's the limit at that point.
There's an awful lot of people out here fixing, as my daddy used to say, you're fitting to get ready. All right. Stop the fixing to get ready and do. And you can't do unless you've studied where you've been and develop a plan for where you're going. And if you don't do that, the gap between you and the success is going to grow wider and wider and wider and wider. All right. So thank you, fellas. Don't really, I have several comments here. I appreciate the comments very much. Don't really have any questions to answer, so I'm assuming that we have successfully nailed this presentation. Good job, Scott, David. One last thing before we go. You got an email this morning. I'm sure all of you have paid attention to your email because that's what you do in the mornings, right? Right? Okay. Well, you got this. We are going to tell them what you told me this morning, Scott, about the national holiday.
Oh, we were one step ahead of the federal government. So yesterday they decided December 26th was a federal holiday this year. We decided that last week. So when they called and they asked what our opinion about it was, we told them, and I guess they implemented it yesterday.
So you're consulting with the president now. Okay, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Sitting on the sidelines waiting to go in when asked.
There you go. There you go. Well, that's what you do, right? All right. By the way, I know that there was a social media post that went out that Kelly put together that was awesome. That had me in a beard and a big belly. I asked her next time. I said the beard is cool, the big belly not so cool. Us old guys are kind of sensitive to that, so let's try not to do that again. And she thought that was funny. So anyway, I did too. Thank you guys. Any last words, David? They can't see that you're shaking your head. No, you have to turn on your mic.
No, sir. We're all good.
Okay. What about you, Scott? You good?
Yeah, I'm very good. Thanks everybody for joining the call, and hope you and your family have a very Merry Christmas.
Very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and we will see you all in 2026. All right. Thank you.